Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So glad you're joining us today. We're diving into something, well, pretty universal. Parenting.
Absolutely. If you're a parent or thinking about it or, even just know someone who is, it's this huge part of life.
It really is. And it's this wild mix, right? Incredibly rewarding one minute, deeply confusing the next, and sometimes just plain hard.
And there's no manual. Shockingly little real training for something so massive.
Exactly. Plus, today, you're just bombarded with advice. Books, blogs, experts everywhere.
Oh, yeah, telling you how to do everything. Sleep training, what activities, how to raise a genius.
It's a lot, and often contradictory. Makes you wonder if there's any, timeless wisdom underneath all that noise.
Right, and that's what we're doing today. We're skipping the latest trends and going straight to the ultimate experts.
People who've actually done it for decades. Raised kids from babies right through to adulthood, and are now looking back from their senior years.
We're digging into Chapter 4, Nobody's Perfect, Lessons for a Lifetime of Parenting, from Karl Pillemer's book, 30 Lessons for Living. He talked to hundreds of older Americans.
Yeah, getting that perspective from, as Pillemer calls it, the top of the mountain, it's unique.
One of the folks in the book, Leo Wiseman, put it so well. He said, "Children are the great equalizers. They humble the mighty."
Huh. Yeah, he really nailed that feeling of being totally untrained for this job, didn't he? Full of ambiguity, huge highs, deep lows.
He even said his own kids were as different as rock, paper, and scissors.
Love that. It's that kind of real, lived-in perspective we're after, not some perfect formula, just what they actually learned through, the messy reality of it all.
Yeah, and Pillemer found some really clear themes. He boiled it down to 5 fundamental lessons.
And he's upfront, right? This isn't a guide to raising the perfect kid or being the perfect parent. That's not really the point.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It's more about avoiding the really big mistakes, the major pitfalls, and crucially, building relationships with your kids that actually last. Strong bonds over a whole lifetime.
Okay, let's get into it. The first lesson. This one feels huge, especially today. And the experts were incredibly unified on it.
It's all about time.
Time? Simple as that. Not money, not fancy vacations, not, curated experiences, just your time. They called it the magic bullet.
Yeah, and the regret about not spending enough time, that came up again and again. It was really poignant.
Looking back, they saw it so clearly. Their kids just wanted their presence, more than anything money could buy.
That hits home, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's so easy now, especially with, 2 parents working, to feel like providing financially is showing love. Giving opportunities.
Right. Tutoring, sports camps, all that stuff.
But these older folks are saying, wait a minute, if that stuff comes at the cost of just being there, maybe we've got it backwards.
They actually talked about making sacrifices, like living on less if you had to, just to carve out that time.
And it wasn't just about, big quality time events. It was the everyday stuff, too. Being present during the routines.
And Pillemer adds this really interesting angle about older kids, teenagers especially. Spending time with them often means entering their world.
Yeah, getting interested in their stuff, even if it seems totally boring or, frankly, annoying to you.
He tells that story about trips to New York with his daughters, right?
Oh, yeah. The shoe stores?
Exactly. Not museums. They wanted to hit, dozens of shoe stores and vintage shops. And he'd just go along, sit, listen, be present.
Right. He made that choice. If they were willing to hang out with him, he was going to be interested in whatever they wanted to do.
And the payoff wasn't that he suddenly loved shoes. It was the shared space, that kind of low-pressure environment where real talk could actually happen, where they might open up.
It fits that clam analogy perfectly, the one from Robert Reich mentioned in the chapter.
Oh, right. Kids are like clams.
Yeah, shut tight most of the time. But then, bam, they might just crack open for a second and share something important if you're not physically there.
You miss it. Gone.
Exactly. So just being around consistently, even doing their stuff, ups the odds you'll be there for that moment.
We hear some great examples from the experts, too, like Clayton Greeno helping his son build a shed.
And that sparked an interest in drafting, led to a career, just because his dad was available and interested.
Or Larry Handley talking about simple chores, like gardening or cleaning together. Mundane stuff, but it created memories, bonds.
It wasn't the chore itself, it was the shared time doing it.
And besides building bonds, just being around acts like an early warning system.
Right. Betsy Glynn talked about that, going to her kids' activities, not just to cheer them on, but to see their world, know their friends.
So they didn't become strangers as they got older.
Yeah. And the regrets about not doing that, they're tough to read.
Sarah Rothman wishing she hadn't put work first. James Washington, whose regret was just amplified massively by losing his son early.
And Elizabeth Wilson. That image of her driving home, physically there, but her mind's still back at the office.
Totally missing the conversation in the back seat. Oof,
Yeah.
that's relatable, and it really hits the point home.
So, yeah, lesson 1,
Mm.
time. Your kids want your time. Shared activities, even the boring routine ones, are key, and be willing to sacrifice for it.
Okay, powerful start. Now, the second lesson. This one might feel a bit tricky, maybe even taboo.
Yeah, this one surprised Pillemer, too. Lesson 2, it's normal to have favorites, but never show it.
Right. We're all told and we feel like we have to love all our kids exactly the same, and most parents really believe they do.
And the experts often started there, too. Oh, no, I love them all equally.
But then
as the conversation went on, maybe in a quieter moment, it would come out, well,
yeah.
there was always something special about Billy, or Betty and I just connected differently, you know?
And they explained it wasn't about loving the others less. It's just
Yeah.
human nature, right? Some personalities just click more easily with yours.
Exactly. Maybe one kid shares your hobbies, another's just easier to talk to. Another might need more energy because they struggle more. It's like any relationship dynamic. Some are just easier, more aligned.
And research actually backs this up. The book mentions studies showing most moms can easily pick out a child they feel closest to or most comfortable discussing problems with.
And also the one they have the most conflict with. So differentiation is normal.
Sophie Fisher, one of the experts, was really open about it. She favored her daughter Alice.
Yeah, she said, we share the same interests. We talk easily. But she quickly added, oh, I love all of them. But Alice is a little different. It was about that comfort, that resonance.
Okay, so acknowledging that preference is one thing, but the key piece of wisdom here is
Don't let them know, ever. Manage those feelings internally, but never show it.
And apparently, parents are often pretty good at hiding it. The research suggests that.
Yeah, and even when kids think they know who the favorite is, they're often wrong.
Which is crucial because the damage from obvious favoritism, that's serious.
Oh, incredibly damaging. Decades of research link it to real problems for the kid who feels unfavored. Conduct issues, mental health struggles, delinquency.
And it messes up sibling relationships too, right? Causes conflict, even estrangement later on.
Absolutely. The stories from experts who felt they were the unfavored child, they are just heartbreaking, still feeling that pain decades later.
Lorraine Bauer, remembering her parents favoring her brothers, she said it actually drove her to achieve, but out of defiance, trying to prove them wrong.
Wow. And Marianne Ratliff felt her mother's dislike contributed to her drifting apart from her siblings.
And Ron Gomez, needing therapy as an adult because his father so openly favored his brother. That's deep-seated pain.
It really underscores how much that perception of being second best or less loved can wound someone for life.
So the lesson here is kind of two parts. First, accept that feeling different levels of ease or connection is normal. Don't beat yourself up about it. Give up worrying, as they said.
Right. But second, and this is non-negotiable, hide it. Actively work to treat them fairly. Never, ever make comparisons that put one kid down to lift another up. Honesty is not the best policy here.
Okay. Moving to lesson 3, don't hit your kids.
Now, you might assume that older generations, who grew up when physical discipline was maybe more common, would endorse it.
Yeah, that spare the rod kind of thinking.
But surprisingly, no. The consensus among these elders was really strong. Avoid physical punishment. Or, if it happened, it was rare and something they deeply regretted.
Interesting. So even though hitting kids is still statistically pretty common, these folks, looking back, saw it mostly as ineffective. Or maybe a sign that the parent lost control.
Exactly. A failure of other approaches. We hear from people like Peter Mortimer who just didn't do it, focused on mutual respect instead.
Bonnie Gilbreth talked about love and listening as the basis for discipline.
And Edith O'Connor described her style as calm, controlled, kind. No yelling, no hitting. And guess what? They raised good, successful kids.
Then you have the ones who did use it, but really wish they hadn't.
Yeah, like Janice Leah. She actually apologized to her adult kids for spanking them. Now she pushes alternatives, like timeouts.
And Rosemary Brewster, her reasoning was just so simple and practical.
I love that. When asked if she believed in spanking, she just said, not really. It doesn't do much good.
And why?
It only hurts you. You feel really bad about doing it. It's not doing any good, so why do it? Boom. Simple as that.
That really sums it up, doesn't it? They weren't saying be permissive. They absolutely believed in being firm, setting clear boundaries, having a moral compass.
Totally. But drawing the line at hitting.
And what's really striking is how perfectly this aligns with modern research.
Right. Science now clearly shows physical punishment is linked to negative stuff long term. More aggression, poorer mental health, strained relationships.
And potentially carrying that pattern into their own adult relationships or parenting.
So the takeaway from the end of life is pretty clear. Hitting your kids isn't something to look back on with pride. It's not needed, it doesn't really work, and plenty of people raise great kids without ever doing it.
Okay, lesson 4. This one feels heavy. And it sounds like it caused the deepest, most lasting pain for the experts who went through it.
Yeah. Avoid a rift at all costs.
This is about estrangement, being cut off from your child.
And the experts who experienced this described just profound, unending sadness. It didn't matter why it happened or how long it lasted or if they had great relationships with their other kids.
They used words like the child felt lost to them or even dead.
Yeah. The chapter uses that image of a rift, like a deep crack in the earth, something that seems impossible to fix, a total break in the bond.
And it's a pain that doesn't really fade. Gets worse with age, even.
So the message from them is stark, really. Do everything you possibly can to stop that kind of permanent break from happening.
What kind of things caused these rifts?
All sorts of things mentioned. Lifestyle choices the parent couldn't accept, maybe disappointment over unmet expectations, not liking a child's partner, feeling betrayed. Usually some big event or pattern that felt unforgivable at the time.
Susan Lemieux's story was just gut-wrenching. 85. Estranged from both her kids after her second marriage.
Yeah, talking about that constant ache, it hurts like crazy and not even fully understanding how it got so broken. Just deep regret.
So how do you prevent it? Did they offer any advice based on their experiences?
They did. 3 main tips for rift prevention, drawn from both those who suffered and those who navigated tricky situations successfully.
Okay, what's the first one?
See it coming early. Notice the tension building, the potential for a real break, and try to diffuse it before everyone digs in their heels.
Like Martha Fulkerson, regretting she didn't deal with the friction from her son's difficult wife sooner.
Exactly. She realized later that winning whatever argument they were having wasn't worth risking the whole relationship with her son. You have to ask, is this fight worth potentially losing my child over?
That's a sobering question. Okay, tip 2.
Act fast after a blow-up, a big fight, a major conflict. Don't let the anger just sit there and harden.
Right. Janice Carpenter waited too long, and the anger just solidified on both sides. Made it way harder to fix later.
Whereas Maria Gallegos, even though it was incredibly hard, forced a conversation with her son quickly after feeling hurt and let down. Painful, yes, but it allowed them to reconnect before things got irreparable. She said, it's worth it, not to feel like I might lose what I have.
So deal with it quickly, even when it's tough. Got it. And the third tip, this one sounds like the hardest.
Yeah, it often is. The parent usually have to be the one to bend, to compromise.
Even if it feels unfair, like why should I be the one?
Exactly. They get that feeling. But they explain it comes down to having a greater intergenerational stake. Parents just tend to value that family continuity more. And crucially, they risk losing contact with grandkids if there's a rift.
Ah, the grandkids factor. That's huge.
It is.
Yeah.
So because the potential loss is greater for the parent, they often need to be the one to swallow their pride, extend the olive branch, find a way.
Even in really challenging situations, like when a child comes out, that must have been tough for that generation.
Definitely. Big generational gap in acceptance back then. But look at Mike Hoyt. He struggled a lot initially when his son came out. But he chose the relationship. He accepted his son's partner.
And that choice kept them close.
It did. And Mike himself grew, became more tolerant. That relationship was a huge source of comfort, especially after his son passed away. He prioritized connection over his initial reaction.
Wow. And then there's Gwen Higerman forgiving her daughter for having an affair with her husband.
I know, almost unimaginable.
Yep.
But she decided the relationship with her daughter, and especially with the grandkids, was worth more than the betrayal, however painful. Her advice:
You have to let things go.
So the bottom line is incredibly clear. Unless there's actual abuse making separation necessary, avoid that rift. Almost nothing else is worth that final lasting pain.
Precisely.
Okay, which brings us to the 5th and final lesson. This one ties it all together with a long-term view.
Yeah, lesson 5, take a lifelong view of relationships with children. The experts talked about those middle years, right? When the kids are actually living at home, say ages 30 to 50 for the parent, they called it the middle-aged blur.
Totally. Just hectic, exhausting. You're putting out fires, managing schedules, surviving day to day. Hard to see the forest for the trees.
But looking back from 80, 90 years old, the picture becomes really clear.
Because we live longer now, most of the time you actually spend with your kids is when they're adults. Think about it, maybe 40, 50 years after they've left home.
That's a mind-blowing perspective shift.
Isn't it? So all those investments you make during the blur years.
Spending the time, not hitting them, avoiding favorites showing, mending fences.
Exactly. All that stuff pays off massively, not just when they're little, but for those decades of adult relationship later on.
And the payoff is?
Connection, meaning, support.
In old age, your kids are often your main source of continuity, attachment. Having good relationships then is priceless.
And having bad ones, or none at all,
is one of the biggest sources of pain and regret in later life. Huge. We hear some lovely examples of the payoff, though. Ray Cadell talking about his adult kids being a source of pure joy.
Yeah, how they all genuinely liked each other, their families got along, that amazing 80th birthday trip they planned for him.
And Essie Feist, at 99, calling her daughters a blessing. Living nearby, taking care of each other.
Still playing cards together.
And she said she was still learning from them. Her whole approach when they were young was just keep your home open, know their friends, stay involved. Simple stuff.
And she had relationships with them spanning, what, 70, 80 years?
Incredible. It just shows the potential length and depth of that bond and how actions taken way back then directly shape the quality of the relationship when you might need it most.
It really is about doing now that which will profit us in the future, as they put it.
Yeah. At the end of the day, they weren't wishing their kids were richer or more famous. They just wanted their kids to like them, to want to be around them. So every parenting decision, big or small, should kind of be filtered through that lens. Does this support that long-term goal of connection?
That seems to be the core message.
Which leads really nicely into the final thought, the kind of underlying theme Pillemer calls the postscript.
Abandon perfection.
This feels like such important advice for parents today. With all the pressure we feel.
Immense pressure. Pressure to raise perfect kids and pressure to be the perfect parent.
And these elders, looking back, just saw the futility in that. Their kids weren't perfect. They all had flaws, made mistakes, went through tough times.
But most of them turned out okay anyway. That's the key. The perfection wasn't necessary for a good outcome.
And they also saw how hard parents are on themselves, constantly thinking, if only I'd done this differently.
Yeah, agonizing over things that probably wouldn't have changed much in the long run. And seeing the toll that pressure takes on the kids, too, the overscheduled, stressed-out child.
So their message is basically, relax. Nobody's perfect. Not you, not your kids. And that's okay.
It's more than, okay, it's reality. Their advice. Just let go of that quest for perfection. ASAP.
And instead, aim for it.
Aim to be what Donald Winnicott, the child psychologist, called a good enough parent.
Good enough, not perfect.
Right. Gertrude Towers talked about trying so hard with Dr. Spock, aiming for perfection, and finally realizing it just doesn't work that way.
And Lenore Frichter emphasized letting kids mess up. Learning from mistakes is part of growing up. You can't engineer it all away.
Her son even said, looking back, they turned out fine without all that perfection pressure.
So it's not about lowering standards or being neglectful. It's about shifting focus.
Exactly. Focus on supporting them through the tough stuff, the failures, instead of trying to create some impossible, stress-inducing ideal. Be realistic.
And the great thing is, those 5 main lessons time, managing favorites, no hitting, avoiding rifts, the long view, they don't require perfection.
Not at all. They just require being present, listening, being willing to learn, having good intentions. Stuff any parent can work on. Qualities available to all of us, not just some mythical perfect parent.
Wow. Yeah, when you lay it all out like that, it really is such a grounded, practical, and honestly reassuring way to look at parenting.
It takes the pressure off, doesn't it? Shifts the focus from achieving some external benchmark to just nurturing that core relationship, because that's what lasts.
It really makes you think, about all the energy we pour into performance, achievement, optimizing everything for our kids today, striving for that perfect family photo. What if letting go of that chase, that intense quest for perfection, and just focusing on being good enough, present, connected, navigating the bumps with the long game in mind, what if that is actually the best investment we can make?
That's a powerful thought to sit with. Maybe the most valuable thing we give them is that enduring relationship itself.
Indeed. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into a lifetime's worth of parenting wisdom.
We really appreciate you being here with us.
Join us again next time as we explore another fascinating topic.